let's get into the bulk of today's show. And what a show I got, because how about this? As I said, for the second straight Monday, I wake up, I put out a killer episode of the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. Thanks to my buddy James Alberino, the spread investor last episode. Think the show is awesome. It was awesome. And then I turn on the computer, and then what happens? We get major college hoops news, and it was the second Monday in a row. I was like, we couldn't have done this Sunday night, so I could have talked about it on Monday's episode. But last Monday was the news that Cade Cunningham was going to hold on to his commitment to Oklahoma State. He was going to attend, be a member of the Cowboys basketball team. And this Monday, how about this? Emoni Bates, widely regarded as the top high school player regardless of class. He is a high school member of the class of 2022. Some say the best high school player since LeBron James, announces Monday morning that he has made his college commitment and that he will attend Michigan State University. So mega news, and there's so much to get into, including will Emoni Bates ever play college basketball? And maybe more importantly, is it fair to kind of put the hype of best player since LeBron on a 15-year-old kid? I'm going to explain why. But first, let me tell you who Emoni Bates is. So for people, and I get it, right? There's a lot going on in the world of sports. Not everybody can follow 15-year-old high school basketball players, but Emoni Bates, as I just said, just finished his sophomore season, and he is widely considered to be the best high school player since LeBron James. For people who haven't seen him play, although he's said to be the best player since LeBron James, his game is actually more KD-like, even though he's only 15, 16 years old. 6'8", 6'9", big wing, can kind of score at all three levels, can take you off the dribble, can finish at the rim, can hit a deep three. He's got the pull-up, he's got the hesitation, he's got this, he's got that. He has the complete package of skills. He is a guy that, as a high school sophomore last year, won the Gatorade National Player of the Year, which is basically the most prestigious National Player of the Year award on the high school level. He became the first sophomore to ever win that award. LeBron James did not win that award. Kobe Bryant did not win that award. Kevin Durant, Greg Oden, Jabari Parker, Andrew Wiggins, all the great high school players of the past 25, 30 years that they've been giving this out. No sophomore has ever won this award. Emoni Bates takes home this award as the top high school player in the regardless of class this past season, beating out guys like Cade Cunningham, Jalen Green, etc. And so obviously, under normal circumstances, the fact that Michigan State got this kid to commit is huge news. I mean, imagine if LeBron had actually ever committed to Ohio State. It would have been the biggest story in sports that year. Obviously, whenever a major high school player commits now, it's a huge story. And for Michigan State, it should be celebrated. They just got the commitment of the best high school player in America, regardless of class, that many people believe has the most upside of any high school player since LeBron, and he has committed to be a Michigan State Spartan. Now, you have to understand the how and the why. Why did he commit now? Why Michigan State? You kind of got to understand the background. And the background is Michigan State was really the only high major to really aggressively recruit Emoni Bates, and it's for one simple reason. Most people don't think he'll ever play college basketball. And so let's get into that aspect of it, because I do think, as I said with the Cade Cunningham stuff when it happened, Jonathan Kuminga, whatever, this is the new norm, is that when a truly elite high school player commits to play college basketball, I think going forward, we are always going to have that kind of public conversation of, will he ever actually play college basketball? And so when you look at Emoni Bates, he is a member of the class of 2022. And I will say, in his defense, this was not his own hype. People in the media did this. But as we all know, there was a window there where we believe that the spring of 2022 was when the one-and-done rule was actually going to be removed. So for the last 2 years, since he really burst on the scene as going into his freshman year, many said that he would be the quote-unquote face of the new generation that goes straight from high school to the NBA. Now, if you listen to this podcast, if you listen to this show, if you listen to AT, I told you all along, I never believed that it was as much of a slam dunk that the one-and-done rule would be replaced as everybody else did, because I go to these tournaments. I talk to people who work in the NBA. I talk to NBA scouts, and I'm telling you, I don't talk to GMs. I'm not going to lie. I'm not big time. I don't have Danny Ainge or Daryl Morey on the phone. But I talk to decision makers in basketball, and none of them were all that excited about evaluating high school players. And you can say, oh, what's the difference between a high school senior and a college freshman? It's a big difference, especially when you make that jump to college basketball, and especially when you make that jump in level of competition. And so I was on the ground at all these events, and I'm talking to scouts. They're like, man, I really don't want to go back to a world where my job is being decided on, do I take the high school senior from this high school? Do I take the high school senior from that high school? I really like that 1 year where Zion went from really good top 5 type draft pick to the unquestioned number 1 draft pick. And I say that to say, like, college basketball really does kind of help separate the cream from the crop, right? There are the guys that step in, have no problems. Zion, no doubt. R.J. Barrett, no doubt. Karl Anthony Towns, no doubt. Anthony Davis, no doubt. But there are other guys that kind of get exposed. I mean, I say this all the time, but, you know, Romeo Langford would have been a top 5 pick, top 3 pick had he been able to come out of high school. Well, guess what? He goes to Indiana for a year. He's kind of He ends up being a mid to late first-round draft pick. I actually think he was end of lottery, so he wasn't that big of a kind of a faller. But he spent most of his rookie year in the G League. And he would have been a top 3 pick if there had been no one-and-done rule. Bol would have been a top 10 pick if there had been no one-and-done rule. He falls to the second round. He spends his whole year in the G League. So NBA people like having this rule in place. But back to Emoni Bates, he was touted as the guy who was going to be the face of the next generation of preps to pros. I never believed it, but he was. Regardless, there is still the possibility that by the time he graduates high school in the class of 2022, that he could be that the rule could be changed and that he could go straight to the NBA. Of course, since all this has started, you know, the hype started really 2 years ago, other things have come into play. We have started this G League program. Now, Emoni Bates said during his commitment to Michigan State, I'm not really interested in the G League stuff. We'll find out. It's easy to say no now. They put a check for $500K or $600K or $800K in front of you. It's something you're probably going to consider. Oh, by the way, let's not forget this. There are the overseas options. Australia has become a viable option. Europe could be a viable option. And there is also just the possibility that Emoni Bates kind of finds a loophole in the system where, in theory, he could move up his high school graduation a year to 2021, then do a year of prep school in 2022 and be eligible for the draft without playing college basketball. And so there are a lot of variables at play with, will he ever step on the court to play college basketball? Because he will have, like a lot of elite players have, great options outside of basketball. And you guys know where I stand on all this stuff. It's not me to decide what's best for him, what's worse for him. Should he go pro? Should he go to college? Whatever him and his family think are best. I'm not going to fight it. And to be honest, I'm not going to freak out when I'm on vacation in July in 2020 about a kid that might not go to college basketball until the fall of 2022. But what I would also say is this. When Emoni Bates committed on Monday afternoon, I'll be honest, I was like, dude, there's like a 2% chance that this kid ever plays college basketball at Michigan State. Then I started making some phone calls, talking to some people, called a buddy over at Michigan State. And I think I undersold the possibility that Emoni Bates would play college basketball for one reason and one reason only, and really 3 words and 3 words only. And that is name, image, likeness. Name, image, likeness. Of course, those are the new rules which could go into place in college athletics over the next year or so, maybe as early as next fall 2021, in which players, college athletes, will be able to benefit off their name, image, and likeness. Now, I will say this, much like the one-and-done rule, it's starting to get pushback from power brokers in college athletics as saying this might not be the great thing that everybody thinks it is, and I have already explained why on this show many times, why I actually think they're correct. I'm not saying players shouldn't be able to. What I am saying is there are unintended consequences. There are the reality that, a restaurant that is giving, say, $100,000 or a car dealership that's giving $100,000 to the athletic department that goes to pay for the softball team or the tennis team or the golf team, that car dealership, that restaurant might instead give that $100,000 directly to a basketball player. Great for the basketball player, terrible for the athletic department. So I'm only saying it to say this rule is actually getting pushed back. And as of right now, the NCAA, like everything they do, is dragging their feet, trying to get us what the actual parameters of all this will look like. And there is some growing frustration within the college athletics community about what is this rule going to look like. But I only bring it up because if this rule is in place by either 2021 or certainly 2022, the people I talk to think, wait a second now, there's actually a really good chance Emoni Bates could come play college basketball because of the fact that he will be able to make some real money on campus. Now, what does real money look like? How much is it? Is it more than the G League? Is it less than the G League? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't think anybody in college athletics knows what that name, image, likeness money will look like. But for a player like Emoni Bates, it should be a pretty penny. Keep in mind, he already has 300,000+ followers on Instagram. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say by the time he gets to college age, if he plays college basketball, that he'll probably be around 1 million followers. Maybe more, maybe a little bit less, whatever. I think he's going to have a real following by the time he gets to Michigan State, though. I think that with his name, with his reputation, with what he has done at the high school level, and the fact that he is from Michigan, I think he could make real money as a quote-unquote endorser once he gets to Michigan State as well. Now, will he? Is he, does he have the personality to be the spokesman for the local car dealership? I don't know. I'm just saying that the reality exists that there could be real money to be made for him as a student athlete at the college level with this name, image, likeness stuff. So I say all this to say that I was the guy, and I'll be honest, I said it on my Instagram feed, Monday afternoon, as soon as this happened, I don't think he's ever going to play college basketball. But in talking to more people across college basketball, I think that number is more likely than I thought it would be. I would also say I think it'll be interesting to see what the timeline itself of when he plays college basketball, if he plays college basketball, is. Does he try to reclassify into 2021 to move up the process to get to the NBA? Does he stay in the class of 2022? There are so many questions. And so all I would say is it's a great day for Michigan State, but there are still a ton of variables to figure out in terms of when he will get to campus. Will he get to campus? What are his professional options going to be? Is the one and done rule going to be removed? Is it still going to be there? If that's the case, does that mean he's got to go overseas? Does he got to go to the G League? Is it just better to go to college? And look, I think it's way too early to really speculate because so many things are changing by the day with everything, as far as how the NBA rules are going, as far as how the college rules are going, as far as this coronavirus is concerned, which we're going to get into a minute with the Rick Pitino tweet. I think it's really hard to speculate where we could be potentially as late as the middle of 2022. So I think it's a fascinating story. I think it's huge for Michigan State. But what I would also say is that it is way too early to really speculate where he could not, maybe will not end up. But I'll tell you this, great day for college basketball, great day for Michigan State as he commits to Michigan State. And I think, like I said, there is a higher percentage possibility that he is there than I suspected when he committed on Monday afternoon. Last little thought on Emoni Bates, by the way. And I talked about this last year. If you remember, last year, for those of you who are like diehard college hoops junkies, and if you certainly listen to this show, last year at Peach Jam is the really big Nike EYBL event, and that was really where Emoni Bates blew up on a national scale. I mean, I remember Matt Norlander from CBS wrote a piece on him. I believe my buddy Rob Douster from NBC Sports wrote a piece on him, and that was really the first time that he got like that big-time national college hoops love, right? The Evan Daniels of the world, who Evan obviously just took another job with CAA. Congratulations to him. Evan's a great friend of mine. But the Evan Daniels of the world, the Corey Evans, the Andrew Slaters, the Eric Bossies, all the guys that cover recruiting knew about Emoni Bates. But last year at Peach Jam was the first time that Emoni Bates really blew up on the national scale. And so I had this conversation then, and I want to have it again now. Because I'll be honest, I am a little bit uncomfortable with the best high school player since LeBron conversation. And to be abundantly clear on a couple things, I want to say this. First of all, I don't blame the kid. The kid is not the one doing the hype. The kid is 15 years old. He just wants to play basketball. He has not asked for all these accolades, all this pressure, all of these expectations. He just wants to hoop. And I also will say, like I said, I don't blame the really good recruiting writers that cover this stuff every single day that are just giving their opinion on this kid and his potential. Evan Daniels, again, just left. He's an incredible recruiting writer, though. And if he says that this is the best high school player that he's ever evaluated, who am I to question Evan Daniels? Who am I to question Corey Evans? My whole life is about giving out opinions, so I'm not going to judge somebody else's opinion. So I'm not blaming the kid, and I'm not even blaming people for doing it. What I am saying, though, is that I am a little bit uncomfortable with this conversation about the best high school player since LeBron, the best this, the best that. And I'll tell you why, and I talked about it a year ago, but I do want to reiterate it here. I think it's too soon. I think it's too early. And I don't even know that it's fair to evaluate him against his peers in high school because a kid like Cade Cunningham is 2 years more advanced, 2 years more with weights and, with weight training and skills training and all that stuff. And I'm not comfortable with it. And so let me get into why. And the biggest why is very simply this. I've seen it before. It very rarely works out. By the way, you can say whatever you want about LeBron James. That's the incredible thing about LeBron James. He was put on the cover at 16 years old in high school, cover of Sports Illustrated, when being on the cover of Sports Illustrated mattered, labeled as the next great one, and he actually turned into it. So, say what you want about LeBron, and I'm critical of LeBron, and there's some things I don't like about LeBron, but he actually lived up to the hype. If anything, he actually exceeded it. And I guess what my problem is since LeBron, I have seen so many guys come through with so much hype that just cannot and do not live up to it. And again, I'm not saying it's Emoni Bates' fault that other people are saying it about him, but I think we collectively as the media need to calm the heck down. And what do I mean by that? Well, think about it. Think about all the guys that have come out of high school, even over the last 20 years, even a little bit before LeBron, that just they were good, they were fine, but they weren't what we were told they were going to be. I mean, the most obvious one is Andrew Wiggins, right? Andrew Wiggins comes out, Huntington Prep, West Virginia, best high school player since LeBron. Well, if we're going to be perfectly honest about Andrew Wiggins, he wasn't even the best freshman at Kansas the one season he was at Kansas. The best freshman at Kansas that year was Joel Embiid. When Joel Embiid got hurt, their national championship hopes went down the toilet. Now, I have plenty of people who will say, well, Andrew Wiggins isn't a bust, like Rob Dowster, right? My buddy Rob Dowster, great guy, good friend of mine. He says this all the time. He says Andrew Wiggins is not a bust because Andrew Wiggins is averaging 18 a game and he's made this much money, and how can you be a bust if you made $150 million or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I would say, I actually think it's the opposite because when you're hyped up as the greatest high school prospect since LeBron, I expect you to come to college and immediately help your team compete for a national championship. And I think Andrew Wiggins was fine at Kansas, but like I said, he wasn't even the best he wasn't even the best freshman at Kansas. He certainly wasn't the best freshman in college basketball that year. That was Jabari Parker. Oh, by the way, Andrew Wiggins was drafted number 1 overall to be the face of a franchise, to help a franchise that has been terrible. It was originally Cleveland. He got drafted by Cleveland, traded to Minnesota. Did he help Minnesota? Was he the face of the franchise? I don't think so because they just traded him. He was signed by Adidas to be the face of that company. Has he been the face of that company? No. So I'm sorry. Andrew Wiggins has been a bust. I've seen other guys come through high school basketball, and it's been the same. Greg Oden, no disrespect to the guy, because guess what? Injuries derailed his career. In the very limited time we saw him healthy, he was awesome. But Greg Oden was hyped as the best center prospect since Patrick Ewing. How many All-Star teams did Greg Oden make? How many championships, how many NBA MVPs did he win? Again, I know it's not his fault, but the point is the hype is too much too soon. For old school basketball fans, there was a kid in Southern California named Shea Cotton back in the day. Google him. He was LeBron before LeBron. I don't think he ever played a game in the NBA. Not his fault, just saying the hype was too much too soon. Oh, by the way, I mentioned this a year ago. Anyone besides me remember Felipe Lopez? Cover of Sports Illustrated before he ever played a game in college. The Dominican Dream. They just made a documentary about him on ESPN. Was going to change St. John's basketball. Played 4 years at St. John's, got drafted late first round in the NBA, was out of the NBA in 3 or 4 years. Doesn't make him a terrible human being, but he didn't live up to the hype. And so I'm so tired of us in the media, and I have not done it once, right? And I've seen Emoni Bates, but he's really good. But I'm so tired of, we got to find the next great this and the next great that and the this and that. Look at the NBA right now. Most of the truly elite players we couldn't have seen coming. I mean, sure, there's LeBron, there's KD. Steph Curry played 3 years in college basketball. Nobody thought he was going to be who he was. James Harden, I remember seeing him at Arizona State, and I was like, this is the guy they're like. I literally saw him live at Arizona State. I went to one of his games. I was like, this is the guy they're talking about? Giannis was like the 14th overall pick in his draft. Westbrook, second best player at UCLA that year behind Kevin Love. And so I'm just bringing this up to say it's too much too soon, and especially with Emoni Bates. And this is not a knock on Emoni Bates, but these are facts that I think are worth mentioning at the very least. When it comes to Emoni Bates, everyone's telling me he is the best high school player since LeBron. Here's the bottom line. Here are the facts. Here are indisputable facts on Emoni Bates. He's never even played at the highest level of AAU, okay? So AAU tournaments, they're done by age groups, so 17s, 16s, 15s, 14s. Emoni Bates played 16s last year when the highest level is 17s. So it's not as though he was going out there and dominating kids 2-3 years older than him, dominating Cade Cunningham, dominating Jalen Green, dominating BJ Boston, Terrence Clark, whatever. He was really good relative to his age group, but relative to even other high school players, we never saw him play against the elite players that were 2 years older. He also did not play at one of these prep powerhouses where they're playing other elite players. He didn't play at Prolific Prep in Napa. He didn't play at IMG Academy or Montverde in Florida. He played a really good local schedule up in Michigan, and he was very successful. And I'm not being critical, but these are facts. Again, I deal with facts. Did not play that national schedule. Oh, by the way, many of the Team USA events where you get together all the best players, all the different age groups. He hasn't been in a lot of those. Hasn't competed, again, against the Cade Cunninghams, against the Jalen Greens, against the whoever, BJ Boston, Terrence Clark, whatever. And so all I'm saying is I'm not blaming the kid. I'm sure he's a great kid. I'm sure there are perfectly logical reasons why he was playing 16s last year and why he doesn't go to the Team USA stuff and all that stuff. All I'm saying is this hype has got to stop. How can we compare him and say he's the best player best high school player since LeBron James when he's only halfway through high school? I don't get it. I don't see it, and I wish we as the media would slow down. I'm sure he will be really good, whether he goes to college, whether he goes to the NBA. But will he live up to that expectation? Probably, and it's probably not fair for us to put that expectation on him in the first place.